Hey, folks, welcome to the Generational Gap. I am Robert, your resident Gen Xer. Right over there, as usual, is John, our resident Millennial. And then right down there, we have Stefan from Pressgang Mutiny showing up tonight. We might be, I don't know. There's a chance we're going to talk about sea shanties. I think we're gonna touch on that subject a little bit because I hear it's all the rage. All the kids are doing it these days, so you might want to try it. Stefan, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, guys. It's a pleasure to be here. I was trying to figure out if I'm a Gen X or if I'm a millennial. I think it depends on where you look. I'm November '79.
79?
Yeah.
Oh, you're definitely millennial.
You're a Gen X. What, really?
Well, hold on, wait.
Wait.
All right,
That's true. Yeah, that's
I
a
was
good.
born in '68, which I thought I was on the latter portion of Gen X.
I've heard Gen X go as late as '82.
Yeah, that's what I've heard
Because see,
too.
I was under the impression that actually you would have been like right on the break line at 79.
Well,
But it's one of those things, right? Like, I mean, there's schools of thought whether or not it breaks on like on an even year, or if it breaks right after the turn of a decade.
I gotta say, I relate more to the stereotypes about Gen X. You know, the latchkey kid, the come home, watch TV, leave me alone. I'm enjoying the lockdown because it's just alone time and I don't have to see anybody. So
Then
working out.
Yeah.
maybe you are Gen X. You know, uh, yeah. I don't know that. You know, it's a cusp thing. I think you might fall into the category of cusp because is
Yeah.
it possible that you kind of lean towards some millennial kind of
Oh,
stuff as
I'm
well?
sure it's rattling around in there somewhere.
I mean, I mean, the neck beard thing is definitely a millennial thing, in my
Yeah, that's
opinion.
true.
Yeah,
That's
So,
true.
so
it
I mean,
is.
not that I'm casting aspersions or anything. I'm just saying.
Oh, man.
So, John, how are you doing this week? We didn't show up on Monday, and I think it was your
Yeah,
fault.
we failed. Well, it was half my fault, but half yours as well, because neither of us showed up on Monday. So
At my
I just
age,
wasn't feeling it because I was still a little, hungover from the Super Bowl. So once you said you were going to do it, I was like, "There's no point. Then screw it. Like I'm not doing it either. I'm not doing it by myself. Watching funny videos on my own. Just sitting here, ha 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 ha, while my head's killing me. That's not, that's not gonna happen.
and see, that's just sad. You know, you people when you people are hungover and complaining, oh my head and all of this and using that as an
It doesn't
excuse. You know
happen
what?
often. It's just
You
like,
know what? Hey, you know what? From a teetotaler, I'm like, screw you. Whatever. You know, get off my lawn, kid.
yeah,
So anyway, just real quick, just normal stupidity going on here. We're still trying to impeach a guy that's not president anymore. We're
right.
vaccine everywhere. People might still be dying from some stuff, but we don't know what it is. But they'll probably call it coronavirus. And free money's on its way, railroaded through Congress
Are they
very
doing the
soon.
full? Are they doing the full 2000 or the
One
14 like they were
They're going to do
talking
the
about
14.
before?
It'll be
That's what I thought.
1400.
Okay.
But those people with kids are going to get an extended child tax credit, which is going to it's like $3,000 if they're
Should have had me a couple
under
of kids a
six
few years
over
ago,
six.
man. I would have been set.
Yeah, but who
That's
would want to go through that? You know, with you.
fair. Yeah,
I mean, you got to
that's
understand.
fair.
So that's us in a nutshell. How are things? You're up north, is that correct,
Yeah,
Stefan?
up here in Canada, and it's been I think we've dealt with a lot of the same kind of stuff you guys have dealt with down there. We just didn't have you know an election in the middle of it.
Right.
So we've managed to kind of keep things a bit more civil. But it was really interesting, and I don't know if this. I'm guessing this doesn't make the radar or the news down there at all, but the vaccine rollout here has been, Canada's sort of finally realized that playing nice it maybe isn't quite the way to go because we asked all the pharmaceutical companies to start manufacturing, in Canada so that we would actually have national supply, and they all said no, and so now we're sort
Hmm.
of, at the whim of the European Union to get
Ooh.
our to allow imports for our vaccine. So we're of course way behind schedule with the rollout. I think we're basically lagging most of the G7 countries in terms of vaccines per thousand. So It's all
Man.
very interesting. But I think a very different political situation than you guys have going on down there.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I don't want to get into a big discussion, but I do have one
No, no, no.
question that just pops up. It's like it's interesting that you say that about the pharmaceutical companies there, because that doesn't seem to jive with the idea of universal health care that you have there.
We
Like,
don't have universal pharmacare.
so really, so that falls
Yeah.
under pharmacare as opposed to healthcare. So the government
Makes sense.
can't really
Vaccines,
step in
yeah.
and force that. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
it's also the this actually happened. I think it was in the '80s, basically, where a lot of the national production, as we globalized, a lot of that moved overseas, and pharmacy was one of the things that did that. So they are building a new facility in Montreal to manufacture. It's going to take about a year and a half to come online, latest I heard. Don't fact check me on that, but it just comes down to we don't have the facilities to manufacture it that are up to Health Canada guidelines or standards. So yeah, it's an interesting sort of situation that you know I'm generally, I guess, as a Gen Xer, generally sort of vaguely pro globalization and free trade and all those things. And it's interesting kind of seeing some of the repercussions that I think we've all become a little bit more aware of over the course of the last 5 to 10 years. And this is certainly one of them that I don't think we expected. And we sort of thought, hey, we're Canada, like we're nice. We can get to the front of the queue when it comes to things like buying vaccine. And that's proven to not really be the case. When push comes to shove, people are going to look after their own.
Yeah.
Well, I think
Fair.
you guys could always call down here. I would be willing to bet we would trade vaccine for syrup. I mean, I mean,
Yeah.
We do have a national
Or
supply of that. Apparently, there's
some
a
extra snow, something. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Yeah.
just just mix it in the syrup. Mix the vaccine in the syrup. Everybody
Yeah,
will get
there
it
you go.
eventually.
so. But Florida, you guys never really did the whole lockdown thing, or if you
We
did,
did
it was
for
sort of brief compared to everywhere else, right?
Yeah, we did for
It
a little
was.
while. But we don't have a mask mandate, but we do still have most of the stores, not all of them, I should say. Most of them do require you as a, prerequisite for coming in that you're wearing a mask. So it's just that the government's not enforcing it, but you do still have to if you want to do anything or go anywhere.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's
Hey,
so yes and no
yeah,
to
we
that
had
question.
a lot of the same initial knee jerk reactions as other states, but the enforcement of it here in Florida was nowhere comparable to what it was other places, to where it
Hmm.
did kind of just fade away, and the governor
Right.
was like, "Look, we're not gonna. We need people going back to work. We need things happening." I mean,
Yeah,
literally the state is funded by tourism for the most part.
right.
So
So without that, we're devastated. We
Yeah,
don't
that
even have a state income tax here. So there's no state income tax in Florida. So all of the money that the state gets comes from sales tax and tourists.
right.
That's it. So
Yeah, it's
yeah, they kind of need
we're
that.
so we're still under a stay-at-home order here in Toronto. It's until about the 26th of February.
Oh
Toronto's
man,
been a bit of a hotspot, like I think any major urban center. And on the one hand, it's like it gets frustrating. I in my day job work, as a consultant primarily to retail businesses, and how I see firsthand how hard they've been hit, and particularly smaller business. I
mhm,
mean, you just walk up the street and you see how many places are out of business. And then on the other hand, my brother-in-law's father is in hospital right now with COVID, like, and just got hit with it very suddenly, right? Had a mild
yeah.
fever, and then basically then one morning, like his wife couldn't wake him up, and so it was into hospital. So
Oh
like
man,
it hits home, right? And so it's
yeah,
like
of course.
I really do try to, and I understand both arguments and see both sides, and I hate how politicized it's become,
Right.
because it just stops any sort of common sense dialogue, because everything has this undertone of let's try to and one up the other guy kind of thing. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's rough.
Or it's like the other guy's a bad guy because of their view, whichever one it is, right? If the other one's a bad person, you
well,
can't have a discussion then. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I am kind of curious about this, being that you're in Canada. When you talk about it being politicized, how much, like, do you think from a global perspective, America had to do with that, like creating this polarization in the political climate in other countries, like spurring it?
Yeah, that's a tricky question, and I don't profess to be at all an expert on it, or even think that deeply on it on a regular basis. It's certainly the case in Canada that, like, we are a lot of our media is your media. You know, like we'll flip on CNN or Fox News or whatever, much as we'll flip on CBC. So you know, we get a lot of that. We see a lot of it, and certainly a lot of the recent polarization is just as, or maybe doesn't play out quite as much in the political sphere, but it's certainly in conversations you have with people. And but I don't know that I put the blame squarely on, like, you know, America as a USA. I think it exists to relate across. You know, I'm not saying social media platforms. Kind of, you know, what you want to hear. Like, look, I'm a left-leaning guy. I try to point to understanding certain viewpoints. You know, I find, you know, guys like Joe Rogan are interesting to listen to because, like, there's a guy who, like, kind of hates him, yet he's a lefty as well. And so, you know, all of this a long-winded way of saying, I don't think the discourse and the political discourse in the States in its current state does anyone any favors when it comes to actually with serious things like a pandemic. So I kind of hope that, you know, whatever you think of the new administration, I think we can all at least hope for, like, just a kind of calming of the temperature. And whether that's because, you know, there's just sort of, you know, less rhetoric, maybe it's because there's no more sort of, you know, anti-Trump mania, maybe, like, whatever it is, maybe just the temperature can come down a little bit. And certainly, you know, speaking as a Canadian, we would benefit from that.
Well, it seems like it already has, at least in my opinion. The temperature's kind of come down a little bit.
Right.
You know, at least since since the whole the January 6th thing happened. Though we can't even talk about it on YouTube because otherwise we get shut down for that. So we'll go ahead and skip over that. Yeah.
We're
Pretty bad.
Here in America, we're currently
talk
going
about it.
into kick the dog while he's down phase.
Yeah.
We're gonna see how bad we can kick this dog, and it's just sad. It really is. I'm just like, you know, and I always think about it when I'm talking to anybody from another country. I'm just like, you know what? People are watching us, right? They're watching. That's the guy looking over at you while you're picking your nose at the stoplight. They're watching you. Embarrass the shit out of yourself.
You know, like, and maybe I'm giving away too much here, but there's always this weird thing as a Canadian where, like, you know, you're kind of rooting against America a little bit, not in like a vicious way, but sort of like a, you know, like
friendly rivalry.
A David and Goliath type of thing, right? Where you're like, you want to see, they'll get theirs one day. But on the other hand, like, it's just better for everyone when there's like a good, stable, you know, sensible United States, you know, not dragging people into wars, not, you know, on the brink of civil war itself. You know, it's a little nerve-wracking. You guys have been a little nerve-wracking over the last 4 years. I'm not gonna lie.
And there you have it. See, I've tried to say this, John. For, you know, that's always what I said about Trump. I was just like, you know, it's how we look to the world, you know, because that's important. It thoroughly is. It thoroughly is important how we look to the world. Like you said, if it's a strong, stable United States that's not dabbling in a little bit of crazy here and there, you know, the rest of the world is like, okay, we can relax. We can do our thing, right? You know, America's on top of things. They're watching what's going on in the world. I mean, we're that shit. No offense, Canada, but we're that shit, right?
Absolutely true.
But when we go psycho, it shows.
And I kind of, you know, I can't help but feel that, like, you know, I'm making up a number here, but like the vast majority, like 90% of people, there's a significant amount of overlap of stuff. You can just hold hands and agree, let's go and do that. Sort of incrementally move things forward and make life better for everyone. And then you've got people who just have megaphones who are screaming on the fringes.
Exactly.
Really not helping things. And kind of like pushing people. You know what? The thing I can't stand is the, like, if you don't agree with me, you're a morally bad person. I'm not even going to have a conversation with you.
Right.
That, regardless of where that's coming from, that's the thing that drives me up the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now we spent 15 minutes talking about.
Well, that's the filler. The first.
I understand. Yeah.
The first 15 minutes is filler, John. Get over it.
Oh my God.
We have to make sure everyone's okay and in a safe place in life. It's important.
We do have Wyatt from the Breakdown with Birkenhoff in the chat saying yo.
And we have a Patriot that has joined the channel over on Trovo as well. Patriot, T-E.
Welcome. Say something in the chat.
Right?
We'll,
Right. There's
yeah,
that
we'll
part.
talk to you.
Talk to us. We want to hear what you have to say. We'll probably ignore it, but still, it doesn't mean anything. So now I don't know how many people are aware of this because I really wasn't. Till John, like he talks about it occasionally, and he used to play songs in playlist when we were gaming for the night, playing D&D and stuff.
Yep.
Sea shanties. Like I've never look. You know what? You kids and your fancy booty shaking shanty music.
Oh
Right.
You
yeah.
know,
And your
I mean,
etch a sketches and your
with
robots.
your
Yeah.
and thumping down the street with your sea shanties going in your
Right.
in your dip rides and stuff. I mean, I've never been. It's never really thrilled me, but apparently there's some popularity coming back to it. Like I don't know. Like the kind of thing like I wish Latin would have, right? It never gets a fair shake, and has a major comeback. But sea shanties, much like disco,
Yeah.
there's a resurgence. What the fuck is
Yeah.
that all about?
Well, what's funny about it too, just real quick, I noticed something about myself, and that's that I can never be pleased because I spent like years trying to get not only Robert but like other friends of mine to get into sea shanties, and then as soon as they become popular on TikTok, like very recently, as soon as that happens, I'm like, oh, now it's gonna be ruined. Like, oh no, like so I just spent all this time trying to get other people to into it, and then other people get into it, and I'm just like, no, like, but I mean, I had to obviously prefer people that are into it, but yeah, it's just my gut reaction was just like, oh no, like I'm not as unique anymore.
Well, and it's kind of also funny that like the song that the Weller Man
Yeah,
that went viral from Nathan Evans in Scotland on TikTok is not even a shanty.
right.
It's a wailing ballad. But I'm in the camp, and of course, like amongst the hardcore shanty folks, this is a big like, wow, there's not even shanties and whatever. I'm of the point of view that the more people getting interested in this music, the better. And from
Yeah,
a personal perspective, that means more listeners for us. I don't know.
right.
Could I share a screen and show you guys just like a stat on
Yeah.
like what this has done to our? I don't know if I can.
Yeah,
let me
as
pull
soon
up
as Robert
the,
lets you do it, yeah,
It's
yeah,
already
let
been
me pull
turned
up.
on.
he's
Don't
got
be
to he's
rude.
got to get permission.
It's
for
already
it.
been turned on. Don't be rude. It's been
All
on
right,
since
there
before
you
we
go.
started the show. Don't be rude.
Fine, fair enough.
Amazing.
God.
So let me just pull this up because it's our basically what's happened to our audience and our clicks and our on Spotify. I can just show you the Spotify for Artists thing.
Pardon me
But
while I
like
whip this up.
yeah, let me just set this to you. Probably see my screen now.
Yep.
So check this out in this view. There's our followers. You see that? Look at that, just like hockey stick growth.
Oh
Went
yeah.
from like
Oh my
literally
God, that's
0
insane.
to like 86, and this is sort of like where things started picking up, and then we're like, hey, let's jump on this and actually like do some advertising and stuff, and now we're going to
Bam.
1,000. So just to give
Yeah,
you a
it's
sense
insane.
of like the scale of what this has meant for and for us, like we're not the forefront of this shanty craze by any stretch of the imagination. We're an obscure Canadian band, but even
Yeah.
for us, it's been massive.
All right.
Um,
And so,
Yeah, definitely.
is there, okay, so you referred to a song going viral, but you said it was a wailing ballad. I don't understand what the difference between the two is. I'm sure you could probably explain it to me. But what's the reasoning? Is there a reasoning? Is it just circumstance?
Yeah, there is. I think it's well, a little bit circumstance in that people are home and bored and looking for something to do. But the nature of sea shanties and kind of the adjacent, feeling ballad songs, that they were designed to be really participatory because they're fundamentally work songs, right? They've got their roots in West Africa and African American work traditions, and they're meant to be sort of easy to pick up, very rhythmic melodies that were timed to the movement of the task at hand. And so, the TikTok platform, which
Hmm.
before the shanty craze was basically full of, young teenagers doing pranks and dances, and it's now full of graybeards like me singing sea shanties. But it's designed in a way where, somebody puts some content out there, and unlike YouTube, it's not put static. You can layer on your own duet with it. You can, put commentary over top. You can take sound from it, do your own thing with it. So it was like, I think, the perfect confluence of platform, the type of music, and a bunch of boredom kind of created this thing. And full credit to Nathan Evans who kicked it off. Like he was pushing this through December, saying, "Hey, I've got this video. It's picking up steam. Let's see how far we can go." and had the right connections to the right sort of, online groups to kind of make it go viral and push it. So a little bit of a flash in the fan, but awesome, just awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
I've
So
seen the sea shanties subreddit too has exploded, and it's funny
90,000 people
seeing.
now.
It's funny seeing though. Yeah, it's a lot. It's crazy, especially for something obscure like sea shanties. But I started seeing like songs that I've listened to for years that I would consider like the popular songs. Like Santiana,
Yeah.
not General Taylor. Whatever. Blow me, Billy Boys Blow. That one.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of ones that I've just figure are like the popular ones, if there are any. And so I just thought it was kind of funny. I'm like, yeah, listen to those years ago. Like I got it. But people are just seeing that. It's kind of funny seeing people actually just discovering them for the first time.
You know what it's opened up for us as a band, right? Like we were in that classic, I think, a very Gen X approach to it of we're going to do concerts, we're going to try to do
Yes.
tours, we're going to do some festivals, and we're going to make albums. And if we do that enough, we'll find the right audience, find the people, we'll get into a group, it'll be fine. It's always a side gig. And what it's opened up for us is like, that is just not how, or rather, it's very limiting to think that that's the only way to reach an audience
Yeah.
with music now. So, we obviously jumped on TikTok. We got a publicist and revamped our website. There's all kinds of shit going on. But we're also like, we're starting a podcast. We're taking a cue from you guys. That is
Awesome.
just about shanties. And there's a real, hunger to find out more and to understand, from the artists why they pick the songs that they pick. And so, we've got an amazing roster of guests lined up. We've done our first 3 episodes. They're in the can. We'll premiere on the 20th of February. But it's another one of those things where we're like,
Awesome.
we don't just have like, there's so many more ways that we could connect with people who are passionate about this stuff around the world rather than just like, a couple venues in Toronto or going to a festival down in Connecticut or what have you.
Yeah.
um,
Well, you're still coming to Florida, right? As soon
Oh,
as you can.
absolutely. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that'll be awesome. Yeah, that'll be awesome. But yeah, I'm sure obviously you're familiar with the Longest Johns, right? They're the ones
We
who I guess
actually
they're
we toured with them, or at least we were at the same festival with them and got to know them back in 2016 or 2017. And what they've done since then has just been
it's
awesome. But
incredible.
they went the route of, in the Reddit, in the Discord
Hmm.
channels, on Sea of Thieves, and getting into video games, and
Right.
really like they built a grassroots community. And so when this
Yeah.
whole viral thing went, they didn't start it, but they were the first band to chart because of it, because they
Right.
had that groundswell and that backing, the grassroots.
They had the infrastructure already set for them. But what I was going to mention though was they did something similar to what you said you're doing. Not necessarily, I wouldn't say a podcast, but every month they'll do a stream where they'll sing, their songs, and they'll take donations, and each donation goes towards a song that that person wants you to sing, and so then once they get to once they reach a certain threshold and they sing that song, and it's really I've seen several of them live, and they're really interactive. It's a good idea that I think you guys should consider.
Yeah, that's great to hear because we're always looking for ideas,
Yeah.
and that's a good one. I don't want to, I don't want to copy those guys entirely. In fact,
Sure.
I reached out to John Darley from The Longest Johns back
Hmm.
in must have been July when our last album came out, and he sort of said, I said like, how are you guys doing this? And he said, yeah, let's connect. And then obviously got exceedingly busy.
Hmm.
But we did chat a bit through the whole TikTok thing, and he was kind enough to pop onto one of our tracks and
Hmm.
duet it.
I did
But
see that; it was cool.
it's just amazing, again that they've taken I just think a really modern path to success, which is
Yeah.
actually connect with and chat with the people who are your fans and figure out what they want and get them invested. We, like I said, we redid our website. The first thing we did when we got a kind of new version of it stood up was go onto the Sea Shanty Discord channel where I've been an active participant and just ask for their opinions and their help. And this is like really good engagement in terms of, what they're looking to see and what would make it more relevant for them. And it makes us better at doing what we do. And it gives people a sense of ownership and engagement. So I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I did not know that there was a sea shanty Discord server.
Yeah, well, next time you
That's
go on the
pretty cool.
Reddit, the subreddit, look up in the top
Okay,
right-hand corner. There's a link there. There's about 500 people on this Discord who are like the hardcore of
gotcha.
the hardcore.
That's awesome. Love
now,
it. Okay.
now I will say, now Now I have an idea, but now it's going to sound stupid. I get it, but let me ask you a question. Now you were talking about sea shanty roots, rooting all the way back to ships out of Africa. You know the trading that went on through that time period, right? So a lot of African Americans involved, slaves, and all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Were there influences in African American music, such as R&B, rap, from sea shanties? Is that correct?
100%.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a guy named Gib. I'm gonna get his last name wrong. Schleifler. I was reading one of his papers today, and he's an ethnomusicologist who studies sea shanties. And in this paper that I was reading today, he was pointing to a pretty early example of, as rap was starting to emerge, and it was like kind of pre the funk backing and all that kind of stuff. And it is structured exactly like what in our tradition we would call a halyard shanty, a call and response. It's got exactly the same meter, exactly the same rhythm. And it's sort of like, not really surprising because these were songs like they're very associated with the sea. But think about it, right? You're on a boat and you're, going to sail across the ocean. You sing some songs while you set the sails. You wait 3 months, and then you sing some songs while you take them down, right? These weren't sung exclusively at sea. These were part of a tradition that actually probably had more to do with the loading and unloading of ships and rail and whatever, like ashore. And so there would have been really strong cross-pollination with some of the field song traditions, some of the other work song traditions. And, it was the nature of the beast at the time that a lot of those laborers would have come from an African background or been African American. So there's a really heavy influence of those traditions into both, what became sea shanties, but obviously then, evolved into other traditions. We were at a festival in Mystic, Connecticut, and there was a group of guys there called the Northern Neck Shantymen. And these guys were 80, 90 years old, about, 6 or 7 old black guys. And they didn't sing as performers, although they were performers now. They actually used these songs when they were out fishing. And, we were sitting, having a chat with them after the gig, and they were saying, what, guys, like, come find us later on and we'll teach you some of the verses we used to sing when we got, farther out where our wives couldn't hear us from shore. We never did that conversation. It's one of my biggest regrets in life. But when we asked them kind of where did they find, their roots and their tradition and, like, where did it come from? They didn't mention sea shanties at all, even though, like, some of the songs were 1-to-1, right? They were coming from traditions of blues and jazz and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, these things are inseparable. And there's another theory that Gibb was laying out in his paper that, part of the... He sort of has this sort of bugbear that it's become a very sort of, associated with the sea, associated with white Englishness. Whereas actually, like, the true shanties, this sort of call and response, very much is a black tradition. And that part of what was sort of has made it kind of persevere but is not acknowledged is that it did do exactly as you described, right? It evolved into other black musical traditions in North America. And while it was the same sort of, roots, it doesn't have the romanticism that, the Victorians or whoever, as they were collecting this, were looking for when they kind of wrote all this stuff down. And in fact, as you would imagine, it was a scholarly tradition that wrote all these songs down. And there, at the time, a heck of a lot of racism. And there was quite a lot of pushback on, that there could possibly be black roots to these songs. So a lot of that was ignored in the early scholarship. And it's only, started to come to light in the last 10 years or so that, actually the roots of this probably are almost exclusively black. And then, became very multicultural because the ships and the crews themselves were obviously very multicultural. So, long-winded way of saying, who knows?
Well, see, now that leads me to the suggestion and the question: do you have anybody in your group that can rap? And secondarily, anyone in your group that can, because sea shanties are pretty much a cappella, that can beatbox, because sea shanties, in my opinion, would lend themselves to a really good roll, and then at a couple of points break down some good rap in the middle of it and work seamlessly together. A fusion of those two things would be phenomenal. And talk about bringing it into the present day.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who it is. I think there is an example of that. I cannot remember who it is now.
I bet.
Well, and look, the some of the stuff that's getting a lot of play in the UK is has sort of electronic beats behind it, but it's remixed shanty stuff. So James in our band is a phenomenal musician. The Canadian equivalent of the Grammys is a Juno. He's a Juno Award winner. Um, and he has, for the past maybe 2 years, kind of just in the background, been working on um, doing basically remixes of our shanties, but also some older recordings. And he's taken much more of a hip hop bent to it. I was chatting with him actually just earlier today about exactly this, because with the podcast we want to make sure that we're not just talking to guys who look like us. We want to get some broad representation in there because it's interesting to understand the different routes and ways of accessing into this tradition. But what James was saying was like he would find it slightly uncomfortable to actually to rap for it because there's this sort of double potential co-opting of different traditions and putting all that together.
The Vanilla Ice syndrome.
Sure. But we are working with a guy called Freeman Dre to lay down some stuff on top of it to fill in some verses. So I think it's a you're not wrong in that musically it works because the roots are very similar. Mm-hmm. These are very much sort of rhyming couplet structures that works really well. So you're not wrong that musically that it just kind of it would be a fit. I think we're just trying to approach it in a way that doesn't present it as anything it's not and respects both traditions.
Well, it's something I'm curious about since you mentioned electronic music and that kind of thing. So traditionally, on a boat, during the work, what was happening instrumentally? At best, wasn't there what was it called, a harpsichord? Not a harpsichord, the little accordion.
Concertina.
Yeah. That's what it is. God, I can never remember.
Yeah, I've got one of those somewhere.
Maybe a fiddle somewhere. Yeah.
So the work songs themselves. So when these songs were being sung to coordinate work, it's easier to think of it as a technology, right? That this was a way to synchronize effort and energy, and that would typically be unaccompanied, largely because you wanted every pair of hands actually doing something,
right?
But also because it's a call and response, right? It is about the voices more than anything else. But when the work wasn't being done, so in the dog watches, the shortened watches in the afternoon, or early evening, when sailors would typically be given a little bit of downtime, they would be singing other songs. Now, there's some thought that maybe it was like bad luck, and people thought it was bad luck to sing songs that weren't shanties on boats. I don't really think that was the case. But then you would have accompanied songs that would typically then, that's where a lot of songs like Wellerman that are more, they resemble more sort of the English folk tradition. They're more melodic, they're longer melodies. It's more of a verse-chorus structure than a call and response structure.
More like a ditty, right?
Yeah, and you would have fiddle and concertina, a tin whistle.
So that's where so the question becomes, which is more pure, an a cappella sea shanty, or one that's incorporating instrumentals? Because a cappella is where my brain leads to thinking would be the more pure sea shanty presentation.
Yeah, I think that I'd have to say that that's right. But again, the definition, it depends on how pedantic you're being about what a shanty is. Right? If you were talking the sort of, pure academic shanty, all the way back to those West African and African American roots, like work songs, call and response, then they would have been unaccompanied. And in fact, even the way we do them with big harmonies probably wouldn't have been as much the case. And we do them with a set of lyrics, and in fact, they would have been highly improvisational. There was one guy who was one of the early collectors and one of the only ones who acknowledged the sort of some of the black roots to this, who he only wrote one verse and one chorus for every song because he said there's no point in writing more down. That's not the way the tradition works. You make it up as you go. But if you're being broad about it and saying, well, when I say sea shanty, what I really mean is kind of maritime music inclusive of work songs, then there's no right answer. It's some was accompanied, some wasn't, and then the practical part of it is, today's day and age, right? We're not reenactors. We're not dressing up in period costumes. That stuff's, in my opinion, dorky. We're doing this to present the power of singing these really cool songs. They have catchy melodies. There's something visceral and just like about them that you want to connect to. And that's what
Like
we want to be, but in a way
almost
that,
primal, I would say.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, does that also speak to like the difference between a present day shanty versus, you know, long-standing traditional shanty that's been passed down from generation to generation? I mean, is it? I guess is the feeling behind the music the same if you write it today versus, you know, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
the real origin of the music then versus now. It just seems like it would offer a different scope to the music. Like I don't know. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. Man, I sort of feel like, the songs that have survived to now have done so because they have a little bit of modern relevance. So, like, in the hands of a skillful songwriter, you could write a song that would pass muster. We have two on our album, one which is a modern song by Anais Mitchell and a guy from Scotland, Martin Green, that, like, it sounds like a traditional sort of folk ballad or sea ballad. In fact, it's a modern song written about his grandparents in World War I and how they were separated. There's another one we do that's written by a guy out in North Carolina, unbelievable songwriter by the name of Jonathan Byrd, Byrd, called Poor Johnny. And, it's about this guy who basically steals a guy's girlfriend, drinks a guy's whiskey, breaks his fishing rod, and somehow mysteriously ends up drowned at the bottom of a lake. But it's written in a way that, like, it's a shanty, right? It is
Yeah.
like bluesy gospel shanty.
That's from across the Western Ocean, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and then for all of that, there are a bunch of really crap modern attempts at writing shanties as well, right? So, again, probably not, the answer you were looking for. It's not cut and dry.
Right. Yeah, it's one of those things, like I always think, blues is always the first thing that pops in my head. It's like, the real blues artists, they knew what the blues were because they experienced the blues, but then there was also a lot of people that got into doing blues. It was like, what do you really think the blues are? I mean, go ahead, tell us what you think it is. Your car payment was late? What?
Like for us, right? And I think this is true of any musical style. There are a lot of different access points. You do it for different reasons. For me, I love singing. I grew up in a family that sung together, in a community that sung together. That's, not common these days, which I think is a real shame because historically singing is just what you do, but somehow as a culture we've accepted that unless you are a professional, amazing singer, you shouldn't sing. And I just think that's dumb. But for a guy like James, he's in it for obviously the music, but he loves the history. Like, he's always calling me up and boring me to death with some story. For a guy like Tim in our band, like he's a sailor. I used to sail with him. And so for him, there's some interest in, the historical accuracy, but also understanding these as a sailing technology. So there's all kinds of different ways and reasons to get into it. And I don't think that sort of, historical accuracy is top of the list for many.
Now, I'm not overly familiar with much in the way of sea shanties. I mean, I'll be honest. Like I said, if
you've listened to the popular songs, popular ones that I showed you,
if they weren't playing it at an '80s nightclub, I have no idea. I'm just saying. But
oh, they might have played a couple. Chicken on a Raft might have been popular there. I don't know.
How back in the day, how politicized were sea shanties? Or I guess, from the aspect of the mainstream ones, like you said, there are some that were being sung outside of the hearing of those that you didn't want to offend, but how politicized were they back in the day?
I would say, very, but politics for these sailors and the singers and the laborers would have been a very different thing, right? They weren't thinking about parliament or, whatever. But political in the sense of there's a lot of sort of class relation, power dynamic discussion in it. There's a lot of, and usually that's, the owner or the skipper, the captain, like the sort of the elites of their day. There's a song, Boston Harbor, it's got, says, if there's one thing we all do crave, it's the captain he meets with a watery grave. We'll stow him down into some dark hole where the sharks will have his body and the devil have his soul. So you get a lot of that type of thing. But I'd say
Yeah.
the vast majority of the lyrics were, at least the ones that are written down and recorded, and you have to understand that this all went through a filtering process of this sort of, early turn of the century kind of lens, right? A lot of it was sailing, women, and drinking. They're like kind of
Yeah.
your three main
So
themes.
country music.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We just with pickup trucks,
yeah,
women.
but it's
Instead
not a
of
surprise,
ships,
right?
yeah.
These were like
Yeah.
it's a very similar kind of class. This is the common man. This is
Right.
you work hard for a living, then you want to crack a beer. Like that's
Yeah.
what these songs were.
Do you think there's a lot of influence in country music from sea shanties? Probably.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't. Well,
I can actually tell you that I know bluegrass comes from
right now that I could
traditional
see.
Irish music, and then bluegrass obviously would also inspire not necessarily as modern day country as you see. That's more like a rock kind of fusion, but old country was kind of a bluegrass inspired thing. I don't know. There might be other ones too, but I do know. I happen to know that bluegrass comes from traditional Irish music,
Yeah.
especially the
I think you'd be hard
Appalachian
pressed to find a
bluegrass.
genre that didn't have influences from other genres, all right? Like
Yeah,
artists are very seldom, you get hot in one category, but you're very seldom, just doing that. Your influences come from wherever.
most art
I
is
grew up,
derivative. Yeah.
I grew up doing, basically English folk music and Irish stuff, so like pretty close in to sea shanties. But like James plays, klezmer, Balkan music, like all kinds of stuff, as well as straight up rock, right? Um, so yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised if there were some threads, from kind of shanties, work songs, all the way up through country music. It wouldn't surprise me, but I don't think the links are directly there, and certainly not in like song structure, right? You don't get a ton
Right.
of like straight up call and response, rhyming couplet stuff in country music that I could think of.
I could certainly hear someone picking a banjo during a sea shanty, though.
Yeah.
I think that
Probably.
would be a good
Especially
instrument.
with especially like the river what are
Right.
they called? The river barges and stuff like that. Yeah, for
For
sure.
sure.
Going up and down the Mississippi, for sure.
Yeah, we do a couple songs actually about that, and they tend to like. I imagine them more as like songs that you would sing when you're just kind of floating lazy on the river, rather
Right.
than songs you would do for work. But like, there are a bunch of really good river songs,
They
either from
are.
like
Yeah.
logging traditions or just from there's one on the album about going down the Ohio River
Hmm.
to Shawneetown to get rock salt because they were the highways at the time, right? So it's kind of like
Yeah.
anywhere you found boats and work, and particularly loading and unloading, you're probably going to find songs.
Yeah. And they are surprisingly good. They really are.
Yeah.
Those river songs.
I'm into them. We regularly now have in our sets three or four songs in a row that are just straight up river songs, and it's kind of fun to kind of go through the themes. We'll do some shanties, straight up shanties. We'll do some river songs. We'll do some wailing songs, which are different again. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's fun.
I definitely think if you do a stream, I definitely think you should dedicate one episode a week to freestyle shanty, where you all
I'm totally down
Cool.
for it.
where you all
That would be awesome.
try and string together a shanty totally freestyle. Maybe the audience submits some suggestions to start it off, and then run with it. See if you can freestyle a
There's
shanty.
Build
there's an
yourself a
event
little
that
mast in the room. Build yourself a little
yeah.
mast so you can haul the halyard, and
There's an event that I used to go to, and hopefully will again when the pandemic's over, in just upstate Vermont, I think it is. And long story short, it's this sort of big music and dance weekend, and on the Sunday we all come back to where the thing is on these school buses. And if you get on the right bus, at some point, it's about a 45-minute bus ride. Somebody will start singing "Roll the Old Chariot" along, and it just goes and goes and goes because at the end of one verse somebody else has their hand up and they make
yeah,
something up, and then it's all about just what's happened that weekend, or taking the piss out of each other or whatever, and it's wild. Like this song will go on for 40 minutes and everyone's just
yeah.
pounding on the chairs, and so yeah, I think that's an awesome idea and very easy to do.
That song is perfect for that sort of thing too. Because you
Yeah,
really
just
can it's just one line and
yeah,
then
whatever
won't
you
do us any
want
harm.
wouldn't do
That's
us
it.
any harm. Yeah,
Yeah, that's it.
rather
That's
rinse
the whole
repeat.
song. That's awesome. I like it.
So you're looking at social media right now. Sea shanties are starting to blow up. Now, of course, if social media is any kind of indicator, as it has been in the recent past, this means that all sorts of media are going to jump on top of that, right? You've got, like, of course, you mentioned video
Yep.
games. That means we're going to have a bunch of video games coming out that are going to, right? They're going to want sound tracking for that, right?
Hope so.
But then, of course, what's all your streaming networks, like they're just spitting out TV now,
Oh
like
yeah.
puking TV out in streams now, right? Just constantly. So there's going to be stuff there, right? But now, are you like really thinking about how much you have to drive that social media presence to
Yeah.
actually make those other things kick off from that?
Yeah.
Is it, how are you guys going to try and handle that personally yourselves, or are you
Yeah.
really going to just try and put it into the hands of a publicity person?
No, we're doing 99% of it ourselves. So like when the TikTok thing, like, so, that wave has crested, right? Like we're past the peak, like the CNN and the New York Times and like they've all done their articles on it. That was 2 weeks ago. The world has moved on. But what it did was it kind of explode the audience and the awareness just generally of, oh, there's a thing called sea shanties and maybe that's something that's cool now. I don't know. So what we decided was like, number one, let's get on top of everything that we're pushing out into the world. Because like I said to you at the beginning, right, we just sort of had the website and a couple albums and hope for the best. As we started to do our digging, we're like, hey, man, this YouTube video has 19,000 views and it's not even on our channel, right? So we're getting a hold of all of that so we can actually kind of, get all the numbers in one place. We also started to push out just some really targeted Facebook advertisements, which was a real learning opportunity. We're like, okay, let's target people who like vocal music and barbershop and sailing. The thing that's done the best for us, people who like Assassin's Creed Black Flag, the video game that
Yeah.
features shanties, like unbelievable low cost per click. And people are just commenting and liking. And that's what's blown up our subscribers because we thought this, like, shanty bands generally are not sophisticated. The Longest Johns are an exception. They're great. Nathan Evans, who's the guy in Scotland who kicked this whole thing off, he's got a record deal. Nobody else is going to do anything about it. So let's, if people are generally aware of sea shanties, let's just push out stuff to them and kind of be the face of that. We're also engaged with that Discord community much more deeply now. And like I said, before the show, one of our guys who works for Microsoft is in touch with the guy at Sea of Thieves, so we can do a concert there. And I was actually just earlier today looking at what they call synchronization rights, which is when you get your music basically considered for movie, TV, or video games. It appears to me that it's like you kind of have to go property by property. There's no sort of central repository that they all go to and pick and choose from, so it's quite arduous. But we'll do as much as we can. Like we're pretty keen to just kind of ride this wave. But I would say that the thing that's been the best for us is we have connected with so many people in the sea shanty world whose music we admire. The very first guy that we have on our podcast, which is coming up, we'll premiere on the 20th of February, is a guy called David Coffin out of Gloucester, Massachusetts. Who's just like, he's a powerhouse, man.
His voice is incredible.
Unbelievable. And like he was a riot. We're long story short then, like we're driving as much of it as we possibly can and in the directions that we want to go, right? This isn't about us, we're never going to ride the shanty wave to fame and fortune, and we're not going to chart like the Longest Johns. It'd be great if we did, but that's not our ambition. Our ambition is to make this music as accessible as it can be, to have fun doing it, and to kind of, we're talking to some guys in Poland. Maybe we'll go over and see them, and they'll host us. We've got a festival lined up in Scotland. Like we want to go, travel the world and have people pay our expenses.
Well,
that's awesome. Yeah, that would be amazing.
So in looking at all this, have you had an opportunity to like really start seeing where this upsurge demographic is at, like what the age groups are and where they are globally? Where are you finding your popularity right now?
Yeah, so it skews heavily male, although not as heavily as you might think. It's typically 24 to mid 30s is like our sweet spot. Which I would have thought like previously it was much older. So that's great. And then, we have most listeners in the United States, followed closely. We're very big in Mexico right now, Mexico City. We've got a lot of listeners. I have no idea why, but there you go. And then, followed by the UK, and then further down the list is Poland. So we're getting a good sense of it. And again, like I say, like the surprise for us is we always thought we were making music for people who already liked sea shanties. And it turns out that actually, people who are just getting into it and trying to learn more that's a great place for us to play because, we've been doing this for a while and we know people, we know things about this tradition, and we also know how to make it, like I said, like accessible, right? Like it's so participatory, and for us, the gold standard of a good gig is getting the audience singing along. And so if we can bring some elements of that, where there's like a little bit of we're here to chat, we're accessible, we want to be out there, then that's a great place for us to kind of do what we do.
So as you ride this, for want of a better term, this this train of popularity to however high and far it goes, what are sea shanties your only niche? Are you guys capable of broadening out and traveling other avenues as needed to increase your popularity?
Yeah, I think we will. Sea shanties will always be the core of what we do. But even before this all happened, we were talking about wanting to do, well, basically had 3 projects that we wanted to do. One was just a holiday album because around the holidays, there's just so many gigs and 4 guys singing together, like wassail songs or carols or whatever. It just sounds great. So that's kind of a no-brainer for us. The second was doing a song of sea music for kids. I've got a 1-year-old and he loves shanties. Richard in our band has 2 kids, and again, they love it. Like it's simple music, it's accessible, you can sing along. So we'll do that. The third was an accompanied album with sort of sea music. But as we were talking about those, we're saying like, look, we can sing anything, right? Like we've got a really good chemistry between the 4 guys, and we can take on some more challenging and interesting stuff. So I think the near-term focus will continue to be let's grow what we do well. We've still got, I think, a couple more, just straight up shanty albums that we want to get out of our system. But I think eventually it just would make sense for us and be musically interesting to branch out into other types of traditions.
Do you have a musical hard limit, something that you just won't touch, like barbershop quartet or anything?
Yeah, that's that's probably it. And a lot of that sort of the collegiate a cappella stuff. It's just not for us, and that's not to say that it's not amazing stuff. There's a festival here in town that we've been lucky enough to kind of become regulars at, and it's a vocal music festival, but it's largely that sort of collegiate a cappella stuff. And look, I'm happy to watch it. I watch the Pitch Perfect movies. It's fine. It's just I got no desire to be on stage doing this and do like I'm not interested. So that for me is a hard line.
Now, if somebody were sitting in front of you pitching a reality show competition where a cappella groups came on and had to do different a cappella type performances, sea shanties, barbershop quartet, these kind of things to compete and go through to the end and win a $500,000 prize, I bet you might reconsider your stance on that.
You didn't tell me there was money involved.
Right. Now, just FYI, that's a fucking great idea for a reality competition show. And
although I don't know, by the time it would come about, I'm not sure that we would still be riding that same wave of popularity.
They can make these things like that, John. They can pull it off like this now. I mean, production value is so fast.
But you know what I would say, even in that circumstance, right? Like part of what we bring to every performance is like we perform these songs in a way that's true to us, and I think we would do that even if we were stepping outside our style. Which is not to say we're going to be singing barbershop like a shanty, but like for us, like a little bit of gruffness. It's not just like the polish and presentation. This is about like there's a rawness to it, and I think if we could bring that to some of those other styles, then maybe give it a go.
Right. It'd be a competition about the cohesion of the group, not necessarily just how great you are at a style, but how good the group works together to make the style work.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we should do that. Maybe we should pitch this somewhere. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Look, if you get it, we're game to audition.
See, you're speaking
we'll
for
make
the
it
group
to the Vegas round. I want to make it to the Vegas round.
The Vegas round. Right?
You're
going straight through to the live shows. You're going to the live show.
We'll just do it on this podcast. Instead of 500,000, we'll just give you $50. I mean, is that good? I mean, the winner gets $50.
John, where are we going to get $50?
At a sea shanties, $50 is pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. See.
All right. Well, we've we've been running off at the mouth for a while, and we're coming to that end time. I do want to say that if anybody's interested in getting to know more about Pressgang Mutiny, I think I put I've got your website and I've got your Facebook down in the description and something else. I put 3 links down there. What's the SoundCloud? There was a SoundCloud link, and it has music.
You know what? We're not on top of the SoundCloud, so I got to get there. And I think, honestly, we're probably best at Facebook, or people follow us on Spotify for the new stuff. That's probably the best place to find us.
I didn't see a Spotify link come up in the early stuff, so I was like, oh,
people could just search for Pressgang Mutiny, 2 words.
It's
Pressgang.
Such a good It's such a good name.
It's a fantastic name. I think we talked about that last time you were on the show.
It's great.
What a great
It's a polarizing name for us.
Oh, really?
The idea is, the press gang were these guys who'd come along and steal you and put you on a ship, and then to mutiny against that would be to rebel against that. So it sort of makes sense, but it is also kind of pick 2 randomly nautical words and jam them together.
But I mean, it does follow at least.
It sounds so rebellious.
It's kind of like if you wanted to mix.
Now, so.
It's like if you want to mix punk and sea shanties. There it is, right? That's the name.
We're the bad boys of sea shanties. That's it.
Right, exactly.
From an American standpoint, it just says, "Annie, grab your gun."
That's right.
All right. So before I flip this to John and have him skate us out of here, tell us, are you guys got anything coming up? Any new music? You said you've got a podcast. Tell us stuff coming up.
Yeah, 2 big things. I think the podcast, which will air on the 20th of February, that's the episode with David Coffin. It's a great discussion, cover a lot of ground, including his recent appearance in Blow the Man Down, which is a movie that came out recently, how he got into it. He sings a couple songs. He does a shanty challenge where he crams something like 20 shanties into a 60-minute slot. It's a lot of fun. So that's the 20th of February, probably 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We'll premiere it on YouTube, and I'll need to connect with you guys about how to actually get our podcast up at some point. And then on the 25th, which is a Thursday, we're showcasing at Folk Alliance International, which is a big folk music conference where artists get to kind of mix and mingle with presenters and bookers at festivals. And there's a ton of great showcases. I think they're all available to the public. So that's available on the Folk Alliance website. I think we're at 10 o'clock on the 25th.
Sweet. Yeah. Sweet. So... John, did you get all that? Did you write it all down?
Yeah, write it all down. Now let's go back and listen later. It'll be fine.
Oh, well, there's that. Technology. Who'd have thought?
Yeah. It's almost like the internet wrote it down for me.
I'm still worried about please be kind, rewind. I mean, I'm just saying. All right, John, can you tell all these wonderful people where they can find us should they be looking?
Most certainly can. Yes. Yeah, let me find. So you can follow us on Twitter. At the GenGapP. You can follow us on our DLive or on our Trovo. All of our links are in the description. We've got a subscribe star. So if you like us, you have a passing affection for us, you can go and donate some money over there, and you get some cool perks in return.
You can fake it.
Make sure you check those out. That's right, you can fake it. We don't mind. We'll take your money either way. We don't mind. You can also join our Discord server, which is a lot of fun, a lot of cool people in there, a lot of cool discussion. Also, if YouTube decides not to send our notifications out, you'll get them there almost every time, because I almost remember every time. And also Freedom Scoop, assuming that's up now. I actually haven't checked. Here, let me check real quick. Nope, not yet, so I won't push that yet. And but Gilded, we're also on Gilded. If you don't like Discord for whatever reason, you can follow us on Gilded. Us and the rest of the Freedom Scoop group. So make sure you follow us there. All of the links are in the description. And make sure you hit that like and the subscribe button.
Right? Stefan, it was great having you here.
A lot of fun, man.
I like it when I learn things. I like
Thanks
it.
a lot, guys. It's a ton of fun.
My favorite thing.
I'm not going to remember shit tomorrow. But
you can go listen back.
But at my age, in about 6 months from now, I'll probably have some very vivid memories of this. They'll finally come back to me. Short term, screw it. No, sorry. I just know there were two guys with beards. I don't know. No, Dale, we appreciate you coming on here.
I really appreciate it, guys.
It's good music, and you guys are set to have some fun ahead of you. There's no telling how much fun you can have. What, you're in Canada? I mean, how bad could it be, right? All right, we're going to get the hell out of here. We appreciate everybody showing up tonight. We are going to be coming back at you on Friday for our regular show. That is at 8:30 p.m. Then we're going to attempt to be back on Monday night for our regular Fill in the Gap episode, bring you a little bit of humor to start your week off after a Monday kind of Monday. And that's at 9:30 p.m. And then, of course, again, a week from now on Wednesday for another rousing episode of Shooting the Shit at 9:30.
And my birthday.
Oh,
Same
and
time.
It'll be John's birthday, so
Next
we'll
Wednesday,
definitely need to cancel the show.
For sure.
But that one's at
I'll be
9:30
here.
p.m. as well. All of those times are the Eastern time zone, the one and only true time zone, not to be confused with all the other posers out there. You know who you are, Wyatt. We're going to get the hell out of here. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Stefan. Thanks, John.
Yeah,
everybody have yourselves a great night. Stay safe out there. Peace out, everybody.
See you guys.
The war will begin.